Welcome back to TalkNorth.com. Thank you for listening. If you can, please download before you listen. It helps our business. I'd also like to thank our producer, Brandon Morton, and let you know if you'd like to sponsor this program or any of the programs on the network, you can reach me at jsouhan47@gmail.com.
Starsky. Oh, we were partners.
What? The Twins are interested in signing Bryce Harper? Are you kidding me? Like, what is next? Are the Twins interested in re-signing Babe Ruth?
You're listening to Steven Strom on TalkNorth.com.
What's going on? Welcome into another edition of the Strom Sports Show. I'm Steven Strom on the TalkNorth.com podcast network. Big thanks to my producer, Brandon Morton. Jim Souhan is the man to contact on the website if you're looking to advertise. Busy show today. Negative Dave makes his way back on, starting to become a more consistent trend for him. He's obviously opening up and giving some time to the show, so we always appreciate that. He's got a lot to get into with the whole Wild and trading Charlie Coyle. There's going to really start to be some movement here, even though they did win last night against the Rangers. You're going to see some movement, I think, as Paul Fenton really tries to make moves, get this core a little younger, and see if we can build from that. Obviously, a really tough loss for the Gophers, and we'll get into that in just a second here. But for a game of that magnitude, for a game where you can honestly say, if the Gophers beat Michigan last night, you feel confident in saying that they are an NCAA tournament team. And I know they only actually lost by 9, but I mean, if you watch that game from start to finish, look, the Gophers, and I've said this a billion times, and I like Pitino, and I hope he is able to stay next year, but his struggles in the half court, and as a former college basketball player, watching them in the half court is like watching someone pull a tooth. Like, just the fact that they have zero penetration, that's where it starts. They don't have a true point guard. And Isaiah Washington, and I don't like to rip the kid, but every time he gets a chance, it just seems like he either overthinks or he doesn't play with the same amount of poise. Like, he is so up and down. And that's what this team lacks, a true point guard. They have zero penetration to get into the hoop. They have zero command as a point guard. They're playing Amir Coffey, who's not a point guard. Amir Coffey is a swingman, okay? His freshman year, he was a 3. And he was able to play comfortably, go into the basket, and shooting threes. And that's where Nate Mason is totally missed. And I know he graduates, you can't really help that. But still, the Gophers' lack of point guard is really starting to hurt them into these deeper games and into these games that are really bigger to win. Yeah, you can get away with it playing Penn State. Yeah, you can get away with it playing Indiana. But when you play the big boys, Michigan, Purdue, Michigan State, Maryland, Wisconsin, you're not going to get away with it. And right now, you look at the outside, right? The Gophers are 17-10. They're 7-9 right now in the Big Ten. Here's a couple things that stick out to me. Number one, they're 1-7 on the road. 1-7. That's got to change. You have to be able to beat a Nebraska on the road. You have to be able to beat a Illinois on the road. You have to be able to beat a Purdue. You have to do these types of things if you're an NCAA tournament team. And the Gophers haven't shown that they have the ability to do that. Listen, Sunday's game, and I'm going to it, against Rutgers, that is going to be a dogfight. Steve Peichel's got those guys playing absolutely tremendous. I mean, they were up 6 at Michigan State. They don't have a bunch of talent, but you know what? They play hard for their guy, and they know their role. Everyone knows their role in that team. They're comfortable in what they do, and they do it pretty well. The Gophers are going to be in a dogfight at the rack on Sunday. That is, I can guarantee you that. And then you look at the record versus the top 25. I mean, they're 1-6. Last night was a huge opportunity. It was a miss. It was a blown opportunity for the Gophers. And I'll continue to say it. That was a 9-point game, but Michigan was fully in control. 16, 17 points. I mean, at least. There was never a feel where the Gophers could get back into it because their offense is that putrid. It was so difficult to watch. And Michigan, look, I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but they just lost to Penn State. I mean, and Penn State handled them. Michigan made a late run, but Penn State handled them for most of the part. And this is just a credit to the Big Ten, how good they are and how deep they are. But still, also disappointing the crowd as well. I didn't even get into that. How are you guys? I mean, listen, there's no snow. I know it's been bad there, the winter, but come on, guys. Like, you got to get to the game. I mean, there was empty seats to start on the tip. You got to get going. This is a big game. But you never felt like they were actually in the game, especially in the second half where they go, they start off, they don't score for the first 5 minutes. I don't know, there's just, Jordan Murphy and Oturu were the only ones that really were into it to me. Everyone else was kind of in la-la land. But just to look at the resume real quick. You beat Washington. That is your best, by far your best win, who is dominating the Pac-12. I know they're not very good, but Washington's 12-1. And they, the Gophers did win that. I don't know if you remember this, but Gophers won that game in November, and Gabe Kousher hit a chuck 3, and they won 68-66. Then they go on the road and beat Wisconsin. You can argue that was their best win of the year, but Wisconsin shot like 23%, which will never happen again. And then they beat Iowa at home. Those are your 3 wins, right? And then you have a couple Indiana, I guess. You want to count Indiana, you want to count Oklahoma State, I don't know. You want to count Illinois because Illinois went on the road and beat Michigan State, and they're beating Maryland, and they're beating good teams. But at the end of the day, you have to be able, in these next 4, Rutgers, Northwestern, who, like I said, Rutgers is going to be a dogfight. Northwestern, they're just, they're a gritty team. Chris Collins has them playing. Always tough. And then you go play Purdue and Maryland. There's no question what you have to do. You have to beat Northwestern, and you have to beat Rutgers. If you do that, then you have to go on the road. You play Purdue, or you play Maryland, and then you play home against Purdue. You have to split one of them. It's very simple for this game. It's very simple for the rest of the season what they have to do. You win 3 out of 4, you're in. There's no question about that. But you can't fool around here and drop a game against Rutgers or drop a game against Northwestern, because these are 2 opportunities here where you're able to boost up your road record, which is just horrible right now. Let's segue into the Minnesota Wild. And they are starting to trade away, which I think everyone... It's funny because everyone says they want to, and then as soon as the trades do start to happen, everyone's like, whoa. We don't, come on, we can still make a run. We can do this. I think it's funny to see it on Twitter, but I'm excited that, first of all, they got rid of Charlie Coyle, which I've been willing to do, and I was happy it happened. Look, Charlie Coyle just never panned out. I'm sorry. Don't try to tell me his potential, blah, blah, blah. He's 26 years old. He's never scored over 25 goals in the season. The Brent Burns trade, it's got to hurt every single time you think of it. And he just never turned out to be the player the Wild expected him to be. And I don't know what to say about that. I never questioned Charlie's work ethic. I never questioned his commitment to the team. But when it came to scoring and when it came to scoring big goals, Charlie was AWOL. And I wish him luck in Boston, and I actually really like the trade, a 5th-round pick and Ryan Donato, who looked pretty good last night. And I know Boudreau basically said, just go out and play. We have no structure in this, so we're not going to give you a bunch of stuff. We just want you to go out and play, and that's what he did. And he ended up picking up a point, more than Victor Rask probably at this point. But nonetheless, you're starting to see it now. Nino Niederreiter to Carolina, who's absolutely hot right now. Now you have Charlie Coyle going to Boston. Who's next here? Is it going to be Stahl? Is it going to be Zucker? Is it going to be Granlund? Because you have to kind of, and the Wild are technically in the playoffs right now. But the question is, do you want to get there and lose in the first round? There's not us winning. Let's not get crazy here. We're not on drugs. Do they want the Wild to get to the first round and lose in the first round? That is the question. That's what Paul Fenton wants. Does he want to do that? Because if he does, he'll keep it together, and I think they have enough right now to just squeeze in because of how bad the West is. Not because of the Wild, because of how bad the West is. I think if you keep them together, they do it, eventually end up making it. But if you don't, there is no doubt you need to start selling. Everybody, not just 1 or 2 pieces. It's time to start over. And that's just the bottom line. I hate to be like this, but that's it. You can't be in the middle with this. You're either all in for the rebuild or all in to make the playoffs. Don't play with our heart here. You're not the Minnesota Vikings. Negative Dave, he's up next.
Minnesota has sure had its share of sports blunders.
number one is the Bopsy twins, Belvy and Levine. Because I think it's one guy. And I think the other guy that show you on pictures or in the media is just some bobo that doesn't, he's just like the janitor or something. They just throw a suit on him.
Nobody breaks them down quite like Steve and Dave.
This year, when you signed Kirk Cousins, the question wasn't even close to being if this team makes the playoffs. The question was, you need to get home field because of what happened last year in Philly.
Let's rave with Negative Dave. Take it away, fellas.
Oh, boy. Have we been waiting to do this or what? It has finally happened. The Wild, after just it is an understatement to say this stretch of games have been a brutal thing to watch, but it's finally starting to happen. The rebuild is looking like it's in full effect here. And the first culprit is Charlie Coyle, and he is off to Boston, his hometown, for Ryan Donato, 22 years old and a fifth-round pick. And there is no other... This is the greatest time to have Dave on here because there is so much negativity going on. We've got a lot to do. We've got the trades with the Wild. We've got Kirk Cousins running his mouth on Twitter. We can find some Twin stuff. But Dave, how are you today? Everything okay, buddy?
I live, as you know, I moved out to sunny Arizona to help my mood swings of negativity, advised by a doctor, as you know. And it has been so crappy out here the last couple of weeks. Now, I know, 50-40, you're probably like, shut up.
Yeah, you can't complain.
But it is raining. It's supposed to rain all through today, all through tomorrow. It's so depressing. I feel like I'm back in Minnesota. It's 44 degrees out. I don't know. I'm really down again. And, oh, man, I got nothing. But the fire sale, finally.
Yes.
You forgot to mention Nino Niederreiter. He was really the first guy to
I guess. I guess because we were kind of convinced that it was an equal trade. I think that kind of I think that's why I kind of moved to the first victim. But yes, I mean we could start with Nino, and that trade looks great right now. As Victor Rask, does he have a goal yet or no?
Well, I've got some sources, and one of them is my good friend Kevin Gorg, who works for the fake sports network, FSN. And I said, Kevin, you know hockey better than I do. You know, you played in high school, and you won a high school tournament, and you think you're the greatest thing ever on TV. I said, why does Nino Niederreiter turn into a goal scorer, or he's getting points? He said basically, he thinks it's because the Eastern Conference isn't as physical, and in that it's more wide open. And I'm like, okay, I'll go with that. I mean, I don't know if there's truth to that. He says, obviously he was buried here on the fourth line.
Right.
I don't know if that would have mattered based on the fact that, we don't really have a lot of first or second line guys. But I don't know. That's the explanation I got from an expert.
That the West
will have to go with that.
That the West isn't physical enough? Is that what he's trying to
No,
conclude?
He says the West is much more physical based on the fact you go in front of the net, you're going to get buried.
Oh, right.
Get hit.
Okay.
Nino is basically a wimp. Okay, not that we didn't already know that watching him, but apparently wimps, make it in the Eastern Conference a little better.
Well, Dave is feisty.
I've heard it twice now.
Dave is feisty today. You can just tell in his voice. All right, well, let's go to the Charlie Coyle trade. I mean, listen, I'll be honest with you, Dave. I've been done with this guy for a long time now. He was the one that we traded Brett Burns to. Oh my gosh! And Brett Burns is obviously a tremendous defenseman. If top two, if not the best defenseman, you can't really argue him or Carlson, give or take. So that's obviously, that trade turned out phenomenal, as every other trade kind of seems like it goes to. And Charlie Coyle, to me, listen, he never panned out to what the Wild expected him to be. We expected almost a 25 to 30 goal scorer. He hasn't sniffed that his whole career. He has had a lot of instances where he's had open nets and his stick breaks, and I've been ready to move on from him. Great kid. I mean, he's a really nice kid. He works hard, but he just doesn't have the skill. He's traded to Boston for this kid, Ryan Donato. So give me your first thoughts on this. And by the way, Ryan Donato did play with Jordan Greenway on Team USA, and as Pat Micheletti said, those were the two best forwards on Team USA. So what are your thoughts here on this trade?
Right. And I'm a firm believer in listening to stuff that Pat says, because he knows his stuff, even though I'll never forgive him to flying off to play hockey and leaving the North Stars in the 80s to go play in wimpy Italy, and he knows that. I've told him. But anyway, moving on from that, he's also a big failure next to his older brother in the real world. But going on to the next, well, I know, but this is truth.